Part 1. Mary had always been full of life. With a laugh that could light up a room and a soul as gentle as spring, she radiated a rare warmth that made people feel at ease around her. So, it was no surprise that when Kennedy met her, he was immediately drawn to her charm and kindness. After a few months of courtship, they got married, and Mary couldn't have been happier. She believed she had found a man who adored her as much as she cherished him. However, as time went on, there were moments she felt a strange, lingering shadow around Kennedy. He was a hardworking man, diligent in his pursuit of success. His business was growing rapidly, yet he seemed oddly secretive about the details of it. Anytime Mary asked about his work, he would dismiss her with a wave, saying he didn't want to bother her with the technicalities. Over time, she grew accustomed to the secrecy, convincing herself it was simply a man's pride in protecting his wife from worry. A year into their marriage, Mary fell pregnant, and her joy knew no bounds. She couldn't wait to welcome a child into their lives, dreaming of a family filled with love and laughter. Kennedy, too, seemed thrilled, perhaps even overly enthusiastic. His excitement, however, sometimes veered into a strange anxiety that unnerved her, as if he were holding back something he dared not reveal. Months passed, and her pregnancy progressed smoothly until around the 9th month. Her belly grew rounder, yet labor seemed far away. Then a year passed, and still, she carried the child. Frustration and worry took over. She saw several doctors, who performed tests and found nothing abnormal. Her mother, Mama Awil, a woman renowned for her spiritual strength and wisdom, urged her to pray and remain steadfast. Mary's family believed her situation was spiritual, but Kennedy was adamant it was a matter of science and medicine. "Why should we run to the church for everything?" he would say, his tone tinged with irritation. "We've seen doctors, and they say you're fine. Let's just be patient." Yet, Mama Awil had a way of seeing things that others couldn't. She insisted on constant prayer, even conducting spiritual rites for her daughter's protection. Mama Awil had always been skeptical of Kennedy, sensing an unknown darkness lurking behind his gentle smile. She wasn't one to interfere in her daughter's marriage, but she felt an urge to protect her. As Mary's pregnancy lingered, Kennedy grew more withdrawn, often slipping out in the dead of night, only to return by dawn. Mary's heart grew heavier each day, her instinct sensing that something was terribly wrong. It was as if a cloud hung over her, whispering of hidden truths. One night, her mother pulled her aside, her face etched with concern. "My child, I have seen something in my prayers," Mama Awil began, her voice thick with warning. "Your husband, he has secrets. Dark secrets. You must keep your guard up and be strong." Mary felt a pang of fear. Her mother had always been her spiritual anchor, guiding her in times of doubt, and Mary knew better than to ignore her wisdom. Still, she wanted to believe in her husband, in the man she had fallen in love with. But as another year dragged on and she remained pregnant, Mary's trust began to falter. She could feel the strain taking its toll on her body, yet no answers were in sight. Nights of restlessness were plagued by nightmares, often seeing Kennedy's face transform into something unrecognizable, something terrifying. Mary was torn between loyalty to her husband and a growing sense of foreboding she couldn't ignore. One evening, Mary overheard Kennedy talking on the phone in hushed tones. She stood at the edge of their hallway, heart pounding as she listened. Yes, I know she's still here. No, it wasn't supposed to go like this. Yes, I'll meet with the priest tomorrow. I'll find a way to fix this, he muttered, his voice strained. Mary stifled a gasp, realizing that Kennedy was hiding something far worse than she had feared. Trembling, she crept back to her room, her mind racing with thoughts. She tried to make sense of his words but couldn't ignore the sickening feeling in her stomach. The following day, she confronted him, her voice filled with uncharacteristic steel. "Kennedy, what have you done?" He looked at her, momentarily stunned, but his face quickly transformed into a mask of calm. "I don't know what you're talking about, Mary," he said smoothly, but there was a glint in his eyes that betrayed him. Mary knew better than to press further. Instead, she confided in her mother, who decided to confront Kennedy. Mama Awil didn't mince words as she looked him in the eye, her presence unwavering. Kennedy, whatever dark path you have chosen, it will end. My daughter is protected. Kennedy's face contorted with a flicker of anger, but he quickly composed himself. Mama, I assure you, I have done nothing wrong, he said with a forced smile. But as time went on, Kennedy's secret began unraveling. Mary discovered that before her, he had married 3 women, each of whom had died under mysterious circumstances during childbirth. Each time, he claimed they had died of complications, but whispers from the villagers told of something more sinister. Mary's heart sank as the pieces came together. Her husband's rapid rise in wealth, his secretive nature, and his wife's tragic fates all pointed to one thing: Kennedy was involved in rituals for wealth, and his wife's were the price he paid. Her own life, shielded by her mother's prayers, had been spared, but her child had been trapped within her as a result. The knowledge weighed on her, breaking her spirit. She didn't know how she would escape, or if she even could. With a child still inside her, she felt both cursed and trapped, as if she were living under a spell cast by the man she had once trusted. Days turned into weeks, and Mary found herself plagued by constant dread. Each night, Kennedy's calm facade seemed to crack just a bit more, his gaze flickering with barely suppressed fury whenever he looked at her swollen belly. Her stomach felt heavy, not only with the weight of the unborn child but with the unbearable knowledge of her husband's true nature. Mama Awil, sensing Mary's suffering, intensified her prayers and spiritual rites. Her presence brought Mary some comfort, but she knew it was only a temporary reprieve. Kennedy's hold over her felt like a cage, one that tightened with each passing day. Finally, the tension reached a breaking point. One evening, Mary saw Kennedy performing a ritual in their home, a secret rite, surrounded by ominous symbols she didn't understand. Horror surged through her, yet she forced herself to stay hidden, watching as he muttered chants under his breath. She understood then that Kennedy was trying to break whatever protection her mother had placed over her, determined to force the price of his ritual upon her. Fear turned into desperation, and Mary fled to her mother's house, seeking refuge. Her mother welcomed her, providing a sanctuary filled with protective charms and blessings. There, for the first time in years, Mary felt a sliver of hope. But Kennedy wasn't ready to let her go. He showed up at her mother's house, his face twisted with rage. "Mary, come home with me," he demanded, his voice low but edged with malice. Mama Awil stood between them, her expression fierce. "My daughter will not go with you, Kennedy. You may have bought your wealth with blood, but she is not yours to take." For the first time, Mary saw the true darkness within her husband's eyes, and it chilled her to her core. He spat on the ground, his voice dripping with venom. "You think your charms and prayers can protect her? I will have what I am owed."